Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Sylvester here once again, and I'm back for some more of the Milky Toys videos, and welcome back for some more of the Sonic's Game Gear Marathon, and welcome back for more Let's Play of Sonic Drift 2 for the Sega Game Gear. So, last time we did manage to tackle through the White Chaos GP Cup, and now we're going to be continue on and move on to the final Chaos GP Cup, in this case, the Blue Chaos GP Cup. So, yeah, this is going to be the grand finale of this game as far as the actual Game Gear Sonic Drift games as a result as well. So even though, as far as much like how it does in Sonic Drift 1, I'm actually going to go for Sonic as the main character for last, because, you know, he's the main character of the series. So, and as for any other characters, I'm actually just decided to choose between Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, or stands for known, Sonic Advance playable characters. So even though that's actually representing from that. So anyways, first course we have is Dark Valley 2, a spiritual sequel to, well, Dark Valley 1. Except the noticeable difference was, though, is the fact that we're going on to the loop track instead of like a linear pathway, unlike it does in Dark Valley 1. So as far as you guys can clearly notice right off the bat, is the fact that unlike in the other cups in the game, that if you manage to grab all these Chaos Emerald icons, if you manage to claim first place in every track, then you're simply able to actually get yourselves just a champion screen, and also you get yourselves a thanks message. The thing is, in Blue Chaos GP Cup this time around, is that there's actually a special requirement if you manage to get all of these Chaos Emerald icons, or even just essentially alternatively, if you actually go first place in every track in this cup specifically. Because there's one thing you might actually notice right off the bat though, I saw a lot of playthroughs on Sonic Drift 2 actually, thanks to the long plays, all that stuff. But even then though, he did manage to go for the entire game within first place, which I found is really good on him. But the thing is about the Chaos GP Cup, which is essentially the blue color, is that you have to be perfect on that cup in general until you actually get yourselves truly the best ending, including the credit sequence as well. Yes, there's actually a step credit sequence in this game, because even then though, unlike in Sonic Drift 1, there are sort of like a special endings for their respective characters for Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Dr. Eggman. Unfortunately though, for Sonic Drift 2, there aren't going to be special endings this time around, so even then that's a little bit of a downside, I have to say this much right now. And as you can see, I managed to overlap Tails, which I feel incredibly bad for Tails, but even then though, still, he might be really having a hard time due to the you know, the pit you have to jump over to by using that spring over there, so even then though, that's the only thing I need to clarify for that. So now we move on to Quake Cave, which I believe is a spiritual sequel or identical to the likes of the Mystic Cave. The noticeable difference is the color background, or in this case the actual color of the actual track itself, and also the music is going faster now, so even then though, that makes it a little bit same as far as the actual soundtrack is concerned, but even then it's basically more likely the equivalent version of Mystic Cave. Although the noticeable difference was this time around though is the fact that the whole entire gimmick of this particular track is the fact that you have to avoid a lot of rocks during the ceiling, because sometimes they occasionally manage to shake the screen, because that actually represents the quake is about to be approaching. So yeah, as far as memories goes of this particular cup or this track is being concerned, that's not that you know, too drastically, I don't know what I think about it for the time. I do apologize for that, folks, because there's not much else I can talk for this point in time. So, anyway, though. So yeah, this is the main perfect example of how the fact that I'm going to be constantly going to be using save states in this particular final cup alone. And how on earth did I manage to get hit right there? That's a little bit too unexcusable for that knowledge. And I apologize for this really awkward voice going on, because I just had a burp. Even then, I do apologize for that. That was disgusting. So, anyway, though. So, yeah, the thing is, you know, that I managed to actually did this on the I managed to try to do this Blue Chaos Cup in my own time. And sometimes I constantly failed on any other tracks. The only time I actually failed on other tracks is actually for almost only 3 tracks. Which, you probably can tell why, that I'm going to be definitely using a lot of save states on my, despicable reasons. I did manage to go through, Dark Valley 2, but I managed to done, only 2 attempts. One attempt I actually failed on, and the second attempt I managed to actually claim a victory and stuff. Even though you might go to probably thinking that it might be a little bit cheating to actually just use the save states because it's on Sonic Gems Collection compilation, But even then, that's only because there's one specific purpose of the actual Blue Chaos Cup GP to be specific. Although it's not so bad in purple and white ones because you can simply just actually race for the actual courses from during that time. So even then, there's only one specific cup in order to actually claim this special secret ending. So, anyways, now we move on to Balloon Panic, which I believe it also kind of reminds me, it almost resembles to Emerald Hill 1 and 2. Except there's no water involved, and even especially noticeable, although the background itself looks very similar to the ones in Emerald Hill, but except the noticeable difference is that I would imagine that it actually contains a lot of balloons, because as far as this level suggests, it does cover it in balloons everywhere, so even then there comes in a different sort of items to your disposal, I think. But even then, I don't know exactly what these balloons all do, because even then, sometimes it can either help you, or other times they're trying to screw you over, so there's not much else I can really say about this here, so yeah, at least thankfully in Quake Cave, that I managed to dodge on the first attempt, which even then no sort of mistakes. However though, in Balloon Panic, I actually did this for 2 attempts. One attempt, as you expected, I did fail, because there's one annoying gimmick about this game compared to the first game, is that if you're expecting to actually win in first place in journey, if you're actually getting close to the finish line, even though it granted doesn't show you the black line this time around, which is a little bit of a shame, because even then, unlike in the first game, you can actually see the start and finish lines, because even then though, you can definitely see what is up ahead. However, in Drift 2, you have to deal with the actual premise of there's going to be a lot of times when the AI starts to get really catch you off guard, even especially noticeable that if you think about winning victory, it was fine enough for you, but even then though, it turns out that the computer opponents always takes you off guard, even then though somehow they win instead of you. So even then though, that's another annoying example about this game compared to the first game. So even then, there's not much I can really say about this point for this point. So, but luckily though, since I managed to got myself a star item, that way it should able to distract those computer opponents. But even then, that's all I can really imagine about it. So, anyways, that's that, and now we move on to the 4th track in the entirety of the Blue Chaos GP Cup, Emerald Ocean. So wait, Emerald Hill, and now Emerald Ocean? It's actually the first time we're going to be driving on water. Well, usually current for standpoints though anyway, because in order to actually do it successfully is that you need to get a lot of speed in when you're driving on water. Because if you do manage to get knocked over by these little random objects here and there off-road, we've especially noticeable that if you accidentally bash the opponents from behind, you will able to fall into the water and you lose about a few seconds to react. So even then, that's all I can really describe about the Emerald Ocean. So even then though, that's yeah. Well, technically, this is more likely before when Mario Kart 7 came around, and even Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did manage to have a feature that you can actually drive underwater, which is a pretty cool concept back in those 2 games. But even then though, this is the only time that, yeah, we're gonna be driving on water for the sake of being, so, drat. But yeah, as you can see, I managed to, fell in because I managed to accidentally got hit by an object or anything like that, so. But even though, surprisingly enough, it only took me like a 1 attempt on that level, so even though it's not too shabby or not too difficult or anything like that, so. Now, here's the thing about the next course after this, is that, there's gonna be a really annoying moment in the next cup, or in this case, the next track after this particular race. But even then though, let's talk about the actual, round 5. But even then, I'm not gonna talk anything about it just yet though, because even then, that, for the most part, I'm not gonna get into more details as soon as we actually get into it, so. Jeez, it looks like Knuckles is having a really hard time on this level. Oh man, I feel incredibly bad for him right now. But I digress. Okay, so it looks like Tails is on the lead, so even then, I definitely need to get some more speed going, but thankfully I got 5 rings, and managed to bash him from behind, so even though he will get spun out, and I managed to claim my victory. How awesome am I? So yeah, here's the thing about round 5. But first things first, we got ourselves a point system out of the way. So here's Milky Way. Milky Way is probably by far the hardest track in the game in my opinion. It's probably because of how the fact that you don't have very much room left. But although the entire concept of Milky Way feels very similar to the ones in Rainbow Road from Super Mario Kart, which is more accurately the Sonic Drift version of Rainbow Road, because we're going to be driving in space. but the turns, especially bottomless pits, is god everywhere. Even to make matters worse though, is that the amount of sharp turns you're going to be dealing with has actually gone tremendous and even nerve-wracking at the same time. Take this final part for example, that if you although, one thing I liked about this stage though is the fact that it's actually a linear path track, much like how it does in Quake Cave. But even then though, we're actually going to be driving towards the Death Egg, which speaking of such, Death Egg makes a return ever since in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, and even especially noticeable in Sonic Drift, no, not Sonic Drift, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, for the Mega Drive version most likely. Now, much like how it does in any other linear tracks, you're going to have some sections here and there. This is probably by far the longest track in the entire game because it's all huge and everything. In fact, the majority of the linear tracks is much longer than it used to be. Okay, take this turn for example, that you have to deal with a lot of strict turning right there, because if you don't turn at the right time, you will fall off to your doom, and then as a result, you'll let the opponents win instead. So even then, that is the worst sharp turn I've ever seemed to encounter in my life. But thankfully, I did manage to die for accurately. I would say this will take me about 3 attempts. Like, one time I failed on that particular turn, and then the second time I accidentally just failed on that exact same turn, and the third attempt I managed to die successfully now. So here we go folks, on to the final stage in the game of Sonic Drift 2, which is none other than Death Egg itself. And basically this is tricky, because even then there's going to be a lot of sharp turns, even especially this curve onto this top portion of his head. Which even then though, that's all I can say about it. So yeah, another thing I need to mention about this is that much like in the first game, that in order to actually get these points, depends on what position you're in, that if you're in first place, you're able to get yourselves 3 points, and if you're in second place, you get 2 points, and if you're in third, you get 1, and then if you're fourth, then you won't get anything, so... But if you want to be Ultimate Challenge at it, you have to be in first place until you get yourselves a Chaos Emerald icon. So, I think this is a perfect example of how the fact that this is the perfect example that I was going to be doing a lot of save states on that particular cup alone. So even then, that for the most part it's fine. This is as far as I know what I'm doing in this particular track alone. But, believe me, in Milky Way is probably by far the hardest track in the game in my opinion. But even then, that's, yeah. There's another thing I need to briefly example about this, is the fact that if you depends on what characters you'll be using onto that specific cup alone. If you either play as Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles, or Amy, you're actually going to compete against with someone, which even then, that'll show you just about until right about now. Which even then, that also needs to be required in order to actually get all 6 of the Chaos Emeralds in one race. So if you do that successfully, then you get yourselves this particular special message. So, once again, the 18 points is the only maximum points you can reach up to. Go final means you have a final challenger to race against with. So, if you're using Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, or Amy, you're about to be racing against with someone that once again is going to take place in Death Egg, and you're going to be racing against with Dr. Eggman. And if you actually be playing as Dr. Eggman and Fang the Sniper or Metal Sonic, you actually race against with Sonic. So, it's more like an opposite to the good side or the bad side. So yeah, that's what I can say about this here. So what's nice about this soundtrack right there is this is actually heavily borrowed from the Robotnik theme from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which even then that's kind of cool. And also the likes of I don't know what to think about it for the time being. So yeah, I do apologize for this background noise you'll be hearing because I'm constantly sniffing a lot. So even then that's probably because I've got something in my nose. So I do apologize for that. So I digress, so let's talk about the overall of the game so far, as much as the fact that, oh yeah, there's one thing I need to point out though, is the fact that after when you beat Eggman or Sonic, depends on what sides you're in, you get yourselves a special credits, which by the way, Sonic Drift 1 does have a very unique special endings to the game, but even then that's not in Drift 2 this time around, because you only get the credits and that's just about it, which even then that you'll see in just a moment. So yeah, let's talk about the overall of Sonic Drift 2, as far as what I was going to be still racing against with Dr. Eggman. Overall, much like how it does in the first game, it's still a pretty miserable excuse for a racing game for a Sonic game. Although I give the game credit though, to actually think that the level themes is slightly different compared to how it does it in Sonic Drift 1, because it's not just like a shameless rehash level themes from the likes of Sonic Drift 1 this time around. But even then that I like to actually point things out though, that I do appreciate how the fact they actually bring up some different level themes to the table. So even then, that's one thing I need to actually give a credit for. And also another thing I give a credit for is the fact they actually add up Knuckles, Metal Sonic, and Fang the Sniper into the roster. So even then, that's all I can say. So even then, although the visuals do look a bit alright, I mean, it's much more nice and polished than the likes of the first game is handled this time around. It's weirdly enough, though, is that every time when I played Sonic Drift 1, especially Sonic Drift 2, all these models, as you can see right there, are ripped right out of the Mega Drive counterparts, as you can see from Knuckles' model, Sonic's, and Amy, and even especially Tails' model. So even then, that's usually kind of strange. So, overall, don't play this. As long as you actually be very curious to try this out on Sonic Gems Collection or Sonic Adventure DX compilation. So yeah, that was about it for Sonic Drift 2. So join us next time of the Sonic's Game Gear Marathon. Next up, it will be Sonic Wapworth, which I'm pretty sure Knuckles is going to be tackling through the worst game ever made. So even then, good luck to you, Knuckles. So see you guys then. This is me, Sylvester, and until then, bye.